KRTV, East Lansing.
Hi there, come on in. I'm Fred Trost, and I have a question for you. Do you know what largemouth bass, lake dredging, and country music have in common? I'll give you the answer in just a moment, because it's Thursday night and time for Michigan Outdoors. What do largemouth bass, lake dredging, and country music have in common? Well, if it wasn't for country music, wouldn't have seen my old friend Sam Ray out at the Stardust Lounge. He's a country musician, a drummer. And you came up to me and you said, guess what I caught?
5-pound, 19.5-inch largemouth bass.
And you were pretty excited about it.
Real excited, yeah. I nearly fell off the boat.
But you weren't in a boat.
I was on the boat.
Oh, you were on the boat?
In it, yeah.
And you were fishing Lake Lansing.
Lake Lansing out in the weeds.
Now, here's where we come to dredging. Ned Fogle, you're from the DNR Fisheries Division. Lake Lansing has been in the news a lot. Dredged out over several years. And you would think that when they went through with all that machinery and equipment, it would wipe out the fish.
Well, it temporarily probably disrupted them in the area that they're dredging, but it shouldn't be hurting the fish along the other edges. What that dredging is going to do, it's going to create deeper water, better habitat. The edges where they're dredging will provide a lot of structure for your largemouth, and I think it should get better.
Is this where you caught it, along one of those dredged areas?
It was toward the weeds, lily pads and all. We just drifted toward the lily pads. And
what time of day?
It was about 7 o'clock in the afternoon, early evening.
And you caught it on, well, you obviously are a professional fisherman.
Trusty Zebco 202.
With equipment like this and a beetle spin. That's a real good lure. And just casting up towards the weeds.
Yeah.
What is it about a beetle spin that seems so hot for bass, Ned?
I think it's probably the attracting spin that's on it, the shape of the lure. It creates quite a bit of an attraction, and it simulates a live bait, but the spin on there creates a noise and attraction of water, and of course the bass really home in on that sort of thing.
Okay, and you caught this in the evening?
Yeah, it's about 7 o'clock, 7:30 somewhere. It wasn't near dark.
Wasn't near dark, but there are a lot of bass caught midday even. Right, Ned?
Right.
Of course, they're back up there feeding on minnows and so on.
Well, bass can feed, they have to feed anytime during the day. I mean, there are some better periods depending on the lake and the area, but there's been a lot of big bass caught right in the middle of the day.
Well, that's a great story. Sam, just say somebody wanted to talk to the guy who was on Michigan Outdoors with his 5-pound bass. Where the heck would he find you the next few weeks?
I am for the next few weeks at the Stardust Ranch. I play in the Lone Star Kicker Band, and I'll be there to sign autographs and
Okay.
whatever it takes.
It's just like the Carson Show, and of course,
Just
Ned,
like
you're
it.
going to be working the Tropicana with the Severance and Band. Okay, well, that's a great story, and I'm glad that you brought this fish down. A lot of good fish can be caught in Michigan. Bass, bluegill, a lot of things can be caught midsummer.
Midsummer, right.
We're not into the dog days, really, if you know how to catch them.
That's right.
Okay, we're going to get into a couple more fish right now. Could put you're the trophy angler of the week here, but we have some coming up right now on our weekly trophy report. We usually end our trophy report with the biggest fish, but we'll open up this week with a big Anchor Bay Great Lakes muskie. It's being held by Chris Lucas, whose dad Joe from Centerline caught it a month ago. 29 pounds, 1 ounce. It hit at 2:30 in the afternoon on a lure they call a salty boogie. A big fish, but I wonder if it's any more of a trophy for Joe than this 16.5-pound lunker is for 7-year-old Ron Kazmierski. It's a carp he caught from the Saginaw River on 6-pound test line. His letter to me said, "This may not seem like a big fish to you, but it's the largest fish I ever caught." 7-year-old Ron and his sister Tammy are a proud pair, and they should be. That's a big fish in anybody's book. Another proud junior angler is 9-year-old Jason Ayo from Gladstone in the UP. His letter said, "I caught this 21-inch, 4-pound rainbow trout in the Gladstone Lagoon with a wiggler on a bottom rig. After a good fight, he threw the hook as I was bringing him to shore, and I had to land him with my bare hands." Jason, there's nothing better than a good fish, except maybe a good fish story to go with it. You've got it. Congratulations. Now we're going to end the trophy report with, well, it looks like a small fish. It is, but it's kind of a special one. 15-year-old Chris Grange wrote me a letter asking for information about fishing in Michigan, where and how to do it. He wrote me back, "Thank you for the Travel Bureau and DNR packets. I've enclosed a picture of my first pike this year, caught on a little Cleo spoon opening day of pike season in Gilbert Lake, Oakland County." Well, I hope the information you got from us will help you catch a lot more of those, Chris. Next time, though, get a really big one, and we'll put you back on our Michigan Outdoors Trophy Report. You know, a lot of the trophies that get reported to us come from letters that you viewers write, and let me tell you, we get a lot of suggestions and sort of goofy ideas sometimes, don't we, Ed?
Well, maybe. Last time we were out walleye fishing, we bumped into Jack Dahlberg of Royal Oak, and he sent us this letter. He says, Monday, my wife and I went out for a ride to cool off. We stopped and started to troll, and we had 3 nice walleye on when she became sick.
Uh-oh.
We'd been fishing about 3/4 of an hour, but the rocking of the boat just got to her. She placed a brown paper bag against her stomach, and she began to feel better.
Oh, naturally.
We have used this method for years, and it has worked, but I just don't ask me why.
Well, don't ask me why either. That might not be such a goofy idea. If you have an answer and you know the reason that works, write to us and tell us. We'd like to know. You know, a lot of you write letters asking about things like legislation, things that are going through the legislature, and one fellow, Jim Chase, a concerned sportsman, he said, I'd appreciate an explanation of Michigan's House Bill 4688 as it pertains to the article in Trailer Life magazine. Well, Jim, all I can say is it looks like the lawyers have been at it again. Here's what you saw in Trailer Life. It said, a person shall not transport or possess in or on a motor vehicle, boat, aircraft, or other vehicle prepared by mechanical means a firearm other than a pistol. Some other things that this legislation says, at least what was quoted in the magazine, if the weapon is loaded, you could get 2 years in prison and $2,500 fine. Unloaded, 90 days, $100 fine. Bob Garner, you're the legislative aide for the House Conservation Committee. Just the man to answer the question, what does this bill mean? It would appear that you can't take a firearm anyplace.
Fred, that's not quite true. Let me tell you what we had before. We had a system under the game law, which is totally different than the penal code, whereby an individual could not carry a loaded gun or a gun that was not encased in a vehicle. You know, the general rules like through deer season that prevent you from taking a shot out the window or from being a bad sportsman.
Sure, all hunters know that you have to have your gun taken down in the trunk in a case, like that.
That's correct. But that was in the game law, and the prosecutions for criminal acts like driving downtown city of East Detroit and having a loaded gun in the car were all handled under a game law provision. Well, a judge in the Upper Peninsula thought that was stretching the power of the game law a little too far. So you're right, the lawyers went back to work and they drafted up this piece of legislation, which they put in the penal code, and we passed another version for the game law, including in the phrase in an area frequented by wild birds or animals. And how this really came about is it stemmed from a traffic stop that that a policeman in the city of East Detroit did make with a 12-gauge double barrel present in the front seat, 3 o'clock in the morning, loaded with double-aught buckshot.
Obviously not a hunter or going out to
Obviously
the
not.
target range.
That's right, or going over to his buddy's house to work on the gun or anything else. It was just, he was looking for trouble. So I brought him in under the game law, and the judge said, hey, he wasn't in an area frequented by wild birds or animals. So therefore we had to go back again and put this in the penal code. Sportsmen, bottom line is, though, sportsmen should have no worry about this at all, so long as they're carrying a gun in a closed case or in the trunk and not loaded. They shouldn't have any problems.
But it says, though, if unloaded, such as taken down in a case, then violation is punishable by imprisonment for not more than 90 days or a fine of not more than $100. It appears that you could be arrested.
There are some other portions to the act that weren't quoted in Trailer Life magazine that make some difference on setting the facts prior to getting this section. So,
You mean if the other sections have to do with what, criminal intent or something like that?
Yeah, things like that, right.
So they have to have a reason. And if you are a law-abiding sportsman, especially if you carried a hunting license with you, you had a sporting gun and it was properly broken down, you say no sweat?
No sweat.
Well, I hope not. Lawyers might go back at it again. Who knows?
Well,
we'll wait and see on that.
Well, Fred, I'll tell you what. I hunt and fish is about as much as anybody you know, and I'll still carry my guns around in the trunk. I don't think there'll be any problem at all.
Okay, well, that's encouraging news on that law. What about this legislation, I think it was Bill 448, that would essentially ban handguns?
Well, we're getting down towards the end of the 2-year session. My assumption is, since that bill has not come out of committee in the Senate, and that again is over in the Senate, that we probably won't hear too much of it. And I would suspect, unless something comes up that I don't know about, that the bill will probably die at the end of session.
Okay, well, that's one that sportsmen are concerned about, and those bills, some very radical ones, are introduced.
Yes.
It's important to keep on top of those, though.
Absolutely, absolutely. You don't want to see anything sneaking through.
Okay, we have just a little bit of time here. What about the law, speaking of handguns, that would allow during deer season using a handgun for deer in southern Michigan?
House Bill 4930, Fred. That has passed the House about 95-2, as I remember, and that is over in the Senate in the Committee on Agriculture and Environmental Affairs. Senator John Hertel is the chairman. If you want to see that bill enacted into law, I would suggest you write Senator Hertel.
Okay, or you could write to us here at Michigan Outdoors. We'll be having our address come up towards the end of the show. Bob, I want to have you back to talk about a lot of legislation that pertains to sportsmen. Give us an update. In fact, you can stick around and give us a few more updates. I want to update you on the International Wildlife Foundation Film Festival. You weren't there.
No.
A lot of people weren't, but we had some terrific films. We're going to go to a clip right now of what is the Gold Tusker winner. The name of this film is Monarch of the Mountains. And it was done by Ray Ponovich out west in the Wyoming, Montana area. It might, the good films, the excellent films look easy. Here's a coyote walking along, a good shot. Well, this is the type of reason that we named this 90-minute film the winner of the festival in the distributed film division. Coyotes are very difficult. You ever seen one?
No.
But you've heard them in the woods.
Yes.
And of course we have a lot of coyotes in Michigan, but here they are. These are live in the flesh and wild, which is what we looked for as judges in this film festival. This elk was dying. It's a 7x7, and people wonder what happens to the big older animals. Well, this film explains it. Frankly, the narrative was the only thing as judges that we sort of objected to. Slim Pickens did the narration, and we thought the voice was a little wearing, but the story was so good. Just listen.
You see, his weakened condition demands food, but still, survival demands that an animal continue to eat. But in his search for nourishment, he may be helping to speed up his own death. While the needles of the pine trees are the easiest to reach, it's likely that the pitch from the pine will coat his stomach, making further digestion even more difficult. Winter combined with disease and old age is an unpleasant but effective means of population control. Humbled by the overpowering cycle of life and death, the bull too has served a purpose. He has created a new generation and inspired the lucky few who have observed him. But the mountain environment is not just pretty scenery, healthy animals and cute newborns playing in the grass. There's the other side of the beauty of life. In the cycle, death is as necessary as life. Death in any environment is unavoidable, but often the death of one ensures the life of others. Bulls that have grazed together, perhaps even battled each other during some rutting season past, pay final respects or offer final challenges.
Boy, that's drama, isn't that, Bob?
That's just fantastic.
Films like that you don't see very often, and things like that happen all the time in nature. People don't know about it. We're going to put where you can get a hold of films like that, the winners of the International Wildlife Film Festival. We're going to be putting them in our publication, Inside Michigan Outdoors, which you can get a copy of. Bob, how about giving us some information on these gun laws, too?
It's a good idea. We can try and make sure nothing does sneak through.
Right, okay. We'll get some in our next issue. But right now, let's call Ed Groves in. Ed, you keep up to date on the events coming up for sportsmen?
Right, and to find out all about it, let's go to our outdoor calendar. This weekend, the Washtenaw Sportsman's Club is hosting a Rex Holbrook Memorial Archery Shoot in Ypsilanti. Almost 60 targets will test your archery skills and promise a good time. Pistol silhouette shoots this weekend are being held in Lansing and at the Wirt Smith Air Force Base. We've said it before and we'll say it again. This is a lot of fun. Next weekend, the Muskegon Bowmen present the Michigan Bowhunters' 6th annual District 4 Deer and Bear Silhouette Shoot. No mechanical release aids are permitted at this 2-day archery event. Next Saturday, the 3rd annual Bass Classic is being held at the Holloway Reservoir. $500 goes to the boat with the most bass and $100 to the biggest bass caught that day. And on the Sunday of that weekend, don't miss the Hicks Holloway Carp Classic, also held at the Holloway Reservoir. With prize money for the most and biggest carp caught, this is also great fun for young anglers. In August, look for Michigan Outdoors camera and booth at the Michigan Bowhunters Rendezvous in Charlotte. With big names in archery like Tom Jennings there, this shouldn't be missed. We'll see you there August 14th and 15th. And don't forget our Michigan Outdoors Small Game Hunters Clinic September 11th at the Okemos High School east of Lansing. Learn in one day all that you need to know to become a successful hunter this fall. You can call the Michigan Travel Bureau if you need further information about any of these events listed in our outdoor calendar.
Well, very good, Ed. There's a lot of things going on in Michigan. Of course, one thing right now, you've been out fishing lately, haven't you, Bob?
Sure
in the Great
have.
Lakes. Let's take a little trip now, do some fishing up around the Mackinac area for lake trout. And we're getting an update from you, Bob, on some of the Indian fishing situation and so on. Of course, the weather on the west side, or east side of the state, Lake Huron, has been pretty rough lately, keeping a lot of the boats off. But, you know, the limits have been lowered considerably.
It's down to 2 right now.
Down to 2 for lake trout in the Great Lakes. That wasn't a legislative move, was it?
No, that's not. That is a discretionary authority of the Michigan Natural Resources Commission.
They set all the game laws and seasons?
Basically on fish laws, they'll set most of the fish laws. On game laws, those are generally set legislatively. It's just been the history of the creature. I don't understand it.
Oh, I'll be darned. What about Indian fishing, as long as we're talking about the fishing up in this area? A lot of people say the Indians have wiped out the trout. You know, this has gone on and on and on. And as it's gone on and on and on, we've heard a solution is just around the corner.
I've heard that too, and I've been hearing it for about the last 3 years. It's funny, I talked to some of the fisheries guys that have been involved, and they say, well, it's the governor's fault. And I talked to somebody I trust in the governor's office to give me the straight scoop, and he's indicating no, that they've been meeting and working on it very hard. I don't know who's really telling the truth. I don't know what the circumstances are, and nobody knows, Fred.
But we do hear a solution is just around the corner.
When we have been hearing.
Well, that'll be a surprise. Well, there are still lake trout to be caught up in these areas. Lake trout this size is mighty fine eating. Of course, they catch them right near the bottom. We're fishing with a small boat here. Sam Grissom owns the boat. He lives in Westland. Used to live in Westland. Now he lives in Brighton. He's a fireman. That's a pretty good job when you like to hunt and fish.
We both have some friends that are firemen.
That's
they get
right.
a lot of hunting and fishing done.
They sure do. But we were fishing up around Mackinac Island on this trip. Catch a stringer of lake trout. Of course, at the time, the limit was a little more liberal than it is now. It's down to 2. We'll remind you of that. You know, the fishing has been real good on the piers. The salmon, well, it depends. The weather, as we get into the fall, gets a little tougher.
Although this week at Manistee, they have really been killing the Chinook salmon.
That's what Emil Dean gave you a report?
Yes, he did.
What did he say?
Well, he said yesterday morning, for example, 2 of his friends in a small boat went out, were in by 9:30 in the morning with 10 kings, their limit,
Wow.
5 of them over 20 pounds.
Can't beat that. Well, you know, even if you catch a stringer of fish like that, lake trout that size, that's not all bad.
That's fantastic.
What's your favorite recipe?
I like the boiled trout.
Fish boil, that's a good one. What about you,
I'd
Ed?
have to agree. That's a great way to eat them.
What about bluegill?
Fried?
Fried? You probably skin them or
Beer batter.
beer batter. Hey, I got a recipe for you. It's called Simple Sunfish. You don't even have to take the skin off. You don't have to scale them. That's right.
Great.
Let's
That's
take a
great.
look at this. Take a look at this recipe. Now, this is one that I did a couple years ago. This was Son's mustache in the old days, but I did a little camping setup. It's called Simple Sunfish because all you do is field dress these sunfish, and they can be very small. And the ingredients we use are easy to take along camping. There's a little bag of sunfish, bluegills. Look kind of small, don't they?
Yeah.
Well, they are sometimes a pain in the neck if you want to fillet them, but all you need is some cornmeal, some capers. You ever had capers?
No.
Well, they're tasty addition. A couple lemons, some butter, and that's all you need for this recipe. Remember, we haven't even skinned them or scaled them. Take some butter, maybe 2/3 of the butter, and you melt it, get it going in a little container. Meanwhile, we're going to take these sunfish and get them ready for the pan. Okay, I'm getting out my filleting knife, but I'm not going to fillet them. I double bag them. You know why I double bag them?
No.
Oh, keep them in the refrigerator?
Keeps it from the water from seeping out.
Yeah, you bet, especially on a perch or a bluegill, something like that. Their spines poke through, and the next thing you have a certain odor in your refrigerator. So I double bag them. But this is all you do. I'm just cutting the heads off right now. Cut the heads off and the belly fat off. And scrape out the insides. That's it. Ready to go in the pan. I know people say you're crazy. This isn't going to work. You're going to get a mouthful of scales. Well, just wait and see. But it doesn't take long at all. You know, I know a lot of people who fillet bluegills.
Yes, I do that.
You fillet them?
Yep.
You're going to enter our fish filleting contest?
Sure.
It's up in Ludington, you know, Labor Day weekend.
I'll be there.
I wonder how Ray Nichols does on filleting bluegill. We're also going to do this at the boat show. We're going to have a fish filleting competition there in February. But there, we just take the heads and the intestines, drop them in a bag, and that's that. These fish are ready to go. You want to wash them off a little bit. Now to the rest of the recipe. Pour out a little water. This is if you're out camping. You can do this out in the woods, do it at home.
Fred, if this really works.
If this really works, okay. I know. Now, I know somebody who fixed fish with this recipe, and they served it to some friends, but they forgot to tell them about a little technicality at the end. You do have to remove the scales and the skin, but I'll show you how that's done. Right now, look at that. Just rolled the fish in cornmeal. Not flour, not cracker crumbs, not breadcrumbs. Roll them in cornmeal and put them in the hot butter or hot oil, whatever you want to cook them in. Butter is great. And brown them up. You know, it doesn't take long. Little fish like this cook very rapidly. Meanwhile, the butter is melted, so squeeze a couple lemons into, you know, half a pound, 2/3 of a pound of butter, and take a teaspoonful of capers, about that many.
What do those
Dump them
taste
in.
like?
It's hard to explain. You know, if you haven't eaten lamb before, what does lamb taste like? Well, it doesn't taste it. Capers are different. They have a, not a pungent, a very flavorful taste, especially with the lemon and the butter. So there they are, simple sunfish. And you say, what in the heck are we going to do with these? Remember, they're covered with scales. The fins are in them. All right, just watch this. A little practice with a fork. You take the fork and slice right down along the top. And watch that.
Look at that.
What do you think about that, Bob?
So far, so good.
So far, so good. And watch how see that meat, how that comes off of the bones? See, you're going to maximize the amount of meat that you get off of these bluegill.
Kind of like eating a brook trout in some respects.
Yes, it is. Look at that. Look at that. You have the skin, the bones, and the fins. And then you take that meat, all that scrumptious bluegill meat there.
Oh, geez.
Take the capers and the lemon and the butter and put it on there. I guarantee you, you'll turn people's heads with this.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah, it is. It's that good and it's better. It's called Simple Sunfish.
Fred, I was wondering what you were going to get us into with Simple Sunfish, but that's incredible.
Well, it is an unusual recipe. Have I showed you my recipe for simple duck?
No.
No, okay, I'm going to have to work on that one a little bit. No, Simple Sunfish is a good recipe, but remember, always use cornmeal. If you roll it in anything else, it isn't going to work. You won't be able to get the skin off that easy because I've tried it. But you can get this recipe and a lot of other information from where, Ed?
Well, all our viewers have to do is write to us if they'd like a copy of this recipe or anything they've seen on Michigan Outdoors. Each month, we're putting out this publication inside Michigan Outdoors, and it has details on the subjects of each week's show. Our next issue will have Simple Sunfish recipe, of course, a rundown on where big master angler bass are caught and how to do it, specifics on the legislation Mr. Bob Garner was talking about so that you can write to your legislator, information on award-winning films from the International Wildlife Foundation Film Festival and where you can get those, as well as information on our upcoming workshops and Michigan Outdoors events. To receive this information in our next issue, just write to us at Michigan Outdoors, Box 1, East Lansing, Michigan, 48823.
Just love to send you a copy. We'll put it in the mail right away. And for those of you who have written to us, this is in the mail right now. Quick rundown on fishing around the lakes. Lake Huron has been kind of rough the past few days. Suggest maybe you take a paper bag with you and try out that technique out in this end of the state. It's been rough, but the fish are there. The perch have been hitting Saginaw Bay all the way around the thumb, down in Anchor Bay, perch and walleye, Breast Bay, perch and walleye over on the west side of the state at Muskegon. They've been catching some big walleye there too. And all along the west side, especially in the southern portion, the salmon and trout have been hitting. And of course, Emil Dean says up in the Manistee area, been getting lots of them and big ones too. So get out and enjoy yourself this weekend in Michigan Outdoors. And be sure to drop us a line if you have a comment, something to say, or would like to receive this publication. We'll see you next week.
From the rugged shore and woodlands of the north, its history of copper mines and iron ore, the Great Lakes fisheries. To the farmlands of the southern counties we'll look around again, and all that waits the sportsman in the state of Michigan. And sometimes when the moon brings out the diamonds in the snow, and the stillness of the forest lies encased in Arctic cold, the wind might whisper through the trees, listen if you can, it tells you of the beauty in the state of Michigan.